The crystalline spires of the Galactic Academy pierced the amber sky of Kepler 442b like frozen lightning. Within its halls, the greatest minds from across 17 star systems gathered to push the boundaries of science and diplomacy. But today, those same halls echoed with the heavy footsteps of exile. Naz walked through the corridor one final time, her worn boots clicking against the polished xenocarbon floor. Her human frame looked almost fragile among the towering Zephyrians and broad-shouldered Titanoids who whispered as she passed. The Academy Council had made their decision unanimous. Humanity's representative was too dangerous, too unpredictable for civilized learning. Primitive problem-solving methods, they had called her approach, reckless disregard for established protocols. Behind her, trying to match her determined pace, scurried a small group of first-year students from various species. At their head was Raza, a young Zarathi whose chitinous plates had barely hardened from adolescence. His 6 limbs moved with nervous energy as he caught up to her. "Professor Naz," he clicked in his species' harmonic language, which the universal translator rendered into smooth standard. "Please, you cannot simply leave." She stopped and turned, her dark eyes meeting the compound gaze of the insectoid youth. Around him clustered others. Vela, a crystalline whose body hummed with soft musical tones. Court, a massive but gentle Goliathan whose trunk-like appendages fidgeted with anxiety. And several others, the misfits, the curious, the ones who ask too many questions. "The council has spoken," Naz said simply. "I don't follow their rules, so I can't teach in their institution. But your classes were the only ones that made sense." Vela chimed, her crystalline form shifting through worried purples and oranges. "You taught us to think beyond the textbooks to find solutions that actually work." Naz smiled grimly. 3 months ago, when the Academy's primary food synthesizer had failed, leaving 12,000 beings facing starvation, she had ignored the proper requisition forms and repair protocols. Instead, she had taught her students to jury-rig a solution using scrapped maintenance drones and algae from the hydroponics lab. They had fed everyone in 6 hours. The council had called it a violation of 17 different safety regulations. "Where will you go?" Raza asked, his mandibles clicking with distress. "The wilderness preserve on the southern continent," Naz replied, shouldering her simple pack. "There's a research station there that needs someone to study the native ecosystem. Apparently, several survey teams have gone missing." "That's why no one wants the posting," Court rumbled, his deep voice carrying undertones of worry. "The wildlands are dangerous, unpredictable." "Sounds like my kind of place," Naz said with a wry smile. As she walked toward the transport bay, the group of young aliens watched her go. But something in their collective gaze had changed. Where the Academy Council saw chaos and disregard for order, these students saw possibility. 3 weeks later, Naz stood in the observation dome of Research Station Omega, watching the alien jungle pulse with bioluminescent life. Her reports to the Academy had been met with silence. They clearly wanted her forgotten. But she wasn't alone. A soft clicking announced Raza's arrival before she saw him. The young Zarathi had somehow convinced a supply transport to drop him off, claiming he was conducting an independent study project. "You shouldn't have come," Naz said without turning around. "You taught us that problems are opportunities in disguise," Raza replied. "The missing survey teams, that's a problem. And problems need solving." Within days, the others began arriving. Vela materialized from a mining transport. Her crystalline body now sporting adaptive camouflage patterns she claimed to have developed for extreme environment research. Court arrived with a medical supply shipment, insisting that someone needed to monitor their health in the wilderness. Soon, nearly 24 Academy dropouts had gathered at the remote station. The mystery of the missing teams revealed itself when Naz led her informal class into the deeper jungle. The local predators weren't just animals. They were a collective intelligence using coordinated hunting patterns that confounded standard survey protocols. Where Academy-trained teams had followed established procedures and been systematically eliminated, Naz taught her students to adapt. "Don't think like the textbook," she told them as they crouched in the glowing undergrowth. "Think like the problem. What would you do if you were a distributed intelligence trying to protect your territory?" Raza's compound eyes widened as understanding dawned. "You would make the threats predictable, force them to follow patterns you could exploit." "Exactly, so we become unpredictable." Over the following weeks, they developed tactics that would have horrified Academy professors. Phala learned to use her crystalline body as a living prism, creating false light signatures to confuse the hunters. Court discovered that his species' subsonic communications could disrupt the collective's coordination. Raza found that his natural climbing ability allowed him to attack from angles the ground-based intelligence hadn't anticipated. But it was their human teacher who showed them the most important lesson. When the collective finally revealed itself, a vast network of fungal neural pathways connecting every tree, every root, every blade of grass, the Academy would have sent diplomats with formal protocols for first contact. Naz sat down on a fallen log and started talking to it like an old friend. "Nice place you've got here," she said conversationally. "We're not looking to take it from you. We're just trying to figure out how things work." The jungle held its breath. Then slowly, patterns of light began to pulse through the fungal networks. Not threatening displays, but curiosity. Within hours, they had established basic communication. Within days, they were trading knowledge. The collective's understanding of biological systems for human insights into technology and space travel. The missing survey teams, it turned out, had been preserved in stasis, kept safe by an intelligence that was simply protecting itself the only way it knew how. When the Academy rescue ships finally arrived 3 months later, expecting to find bodies, they instead discovered a thriving research colony. Nayaz and her students had not only made first contact with a previously unknown sapient species, but had established the groundwork for a treaty that would revolutionize biological sciences across the galaxy. The Academy Council's emergency session was brief. This was completely against protocol, Chancellor Vorthak stated, his crystalline voice ringing with authority. "Yes," Naz agreed simply. "You endangered students by bringing them into an unknown hostile environment. Yes, you made first contact without proper diplomatic channels or xenobiological safety measures. Yes." The Chancellor paused, his massive form shifting uncomfortably. "Your methods are chaotic, dangerous, and completely contrary to everything we teach." Naz waited. "However," he continued with obvious reluctance, "your results are undeniable. The board has voted to offer you a full professorship with your own department. You may teach as you see fit." Naz looked around the chamber at the faces of beings from across the galaxy, some hostile, some curious, all watching to see what the dangerous human would do. "I appreciate the offer," she said, "but I think I'll stay in the wilderness. That's where the real learning happens. Anyone who wants to join me is welcome." As she walked out of the chamber for the second time, the sound of footsteps followed her. Not just Raza and his fellow outcasts, but dozens of others. Established professors, seasoned researchers, beings who had spent years following the safe, predictable paths of institutional learning. Behind her, chaos followed. Beautiful, productive, utterly human chaos. And the galaxy would never be the same.